Okay, so,
No, one of the workmen was always, when he saw me, was always shouting "Allez l'Union!" So "Allez l'Union!" our football team. So come on Union if you want. That's but about the work, about the brewery itself. No, my first work, but I was 8 or 9, was to put dirty bottles. So in those time, in the 80s, 70s, we had a big machine to clean bottles, and one of my work was to put the dirty bottles in the machine. That's but 5, 6 now. I have no memories now.
and did you drink lambic as table beer as a child, or was that still happening?
No, we at home. My father had goose naturally, but I remember him drinking always when he was working for the brewery, contability and so, during the weekend, drinking an Orval beer.
Overall.
Yeah, and so if I remember well, one of the first beer I tasted at home was Orval. And one of my first Pilsner was with my grandfather, and he was drinking Wiedemann's. So a very good Pilsner, hoppy, as Pilsner should be. But in my memory, the Goes, Lambic, and all beers, I drank it here, in the brewery.
Visit any other lambic breweries when you were very young with
No.
your father? No, never?
No,
Well,
never.
when was the first time you went to a different brewery? On like a tour or something like a
Chimay.
Chimay? Okay.
Chimay in the late 80s, so I was 80, 90, 20. Yeah,
Yeah.
it was Chimay.
Okay. So pretty much you knew this brewery and
Yeah.
up until that time pretty much.
But we had no. When Cantillon was totally. How can I say that? Totally unknown in the 70s, 80s, even 90s. No one had interest for a brewery, and yes, we worked so hard during during 20 years. I was working here for 6 days a week, with only 10 days vacation a year.
Wow.
Same for my parents.
Wow.
And so when you have your day off on Sunday, it's not to try to go to visit another brewery,
Yeah. Go to a football game with some beer.
for example.
Yeah. So you started working here first time in what, the November of '89 after your military service? Officially full-time. Full-time.
October 1st. Yeah.
October 1st.
89.
At that point, though, you probably weren't brewing until
89, yeah. Yeah, October 89.
So the first few years were things pretty much just the same, like you have, of course, Goose, Lambic, Creek. Did you have Faro too at that point?
Yeah.
Or? Yeah. So pretty much.
Faro was still popular in this time, and could be always popular, but yes, we are so focused on something dry, something sour, that even here time to time we produce Faro, but not so much. No, so Goose, Creek, Framboise. It was not the Rosé de Gambrinus, Framboise in the 80s. The Rosé de Gambrinus was produced once in 86, but yeah, in late 80s when I started, Goose, Creek, Framboise. Yeah.
And for the
we
first.
start to produce the specials in the early 90s. Fufun, Sint Lampenus.
So one thing I noticed, one of the oldest articles I saw was a 1992 Washington Post article. Do you recall the visit from them?
Not really, no. It's my father took care for journalists, and no.
What I read in that one, it said at that point in '92 that was 70% barley and 30% wheat. Is that correct, or has it always been 65-35 for the barley to wheat?
In my opinion, always 65-35,
So
because we didn't change anything. We changed I think 80s. We changed the volume of cereals used per brew, because before we produced 7,000 liters per brew, and so my father he worked to increase it. He worked with a friend, Guider de Links. Guider de Links was a very important brew engineer in Belgium in the 80s, and they changed a bit the volume, but not the
percentage.
The percentage.
Okay.
Yeah.
And at that point, they said you brewed 9 times a year in '92. Does that sound correct?
Not in '92, in '89. '92, I think 12.
Okay. So he
But
made
when I started here, when I arrived here, 9. Yeah.
9. Okay. So that would have been about 600, 700 hectoliters production for a year, right when you started.
One brew, so we pump up 75 hectoliters, about 75 hectoliters on the cool ship, but during the night we are losing about 10 hectoliters, so natural evaporation, not so far from 10 in the barrels as well, so natural evaporation, wood absorption, and so we commercialize, that's the official volume for the excise, we commercialize 56 hectoliters per brew. So it means when we brew 9 times a year, about 500 hectare.
When did that start to increase? Was it in the early to mid '90s? Was there like a slow, or when was it that you started to
so when my father decided to grow up to 12, I think the season when I started, or the season after, I have to verify in the documents, but because I was there, and probably another motivation, because in the late 80s, early 90s, the demand wasn't growing. So the demand grows. Begin 90s, we start to export. First Japan. Japan is our oldest export country, except naturally some volume in France, in Netherlands, so the neighborhood countries. But so the export started with Japan in '89, because we will fest the 30th years collaboration with Ganeshan, our importer. US 90 with Maurice Koja from Brixkeller in 93 or 94, if I remember well. But always small volumes. In the same time, we start to work with Deleuze supermarket. Deleuze was very important for us in that time, because Deleuze took, if I remember well, about 25,000 dollars a year, and it was a great help for us.
Yeah. And when did Tom Peter start offering Cantillon at Monk's? Or when did you start with
at the beginning. So Monk's exists now since 20 years.
Yeah.
I think Tom was working with us since the beginning.
So
Tom, I remember Tom, I remember Dan Lanigan, no owner from Lord Hobo, but before Dan was owned the two bars in Western Massachusetts, Dirty Truth and I don't remember the other one. He was also working, one of the first to work with us in US.
And was that through Shelton, or did you start with different importers at the first beginning?
First Maurice Scotia, but Maurice Scotia had some difficulties to solve Cantillon. Same for Shelton at the beginning, but you have to ask it to Dan. But at the beginning it was not easy to sell Cantillon. The beer was considered as beer too sour, difficult to sell and to defend, and that's why I think Mokoja stopped to work with Cantillon. And some days later arrives here Shelton Brothers. I think that the first who met us was Joel. Joel was in Europe and in Belgium. Joel is a musician playing in a band, and the band was playing in Brussels, and he was here for a tour, a classic tour, like a classic visitor. I had a talk with my mother, and that's the start of our cooperation. But at the beginning, Shelton has also
like a very slow start.
A lot of difficulties to
a number of years to grow and to,
I think we can speak of the real start of the Cantillon success in US in early 2000s.
Yeah.
There things change, we feel it, so it's not so far ago. It's
So it was
15 years ago.
a certain year that you saw things are really all of a sudden starting to go okay and sales are going up and demand.
When it changed in US, it's the same in Scandinavia. So we feel some change in Scandinavia with Stene from Akkurat. Stene is also a big defender for traditional lambic, and one of the best. Je te rappelle après l'eau. And one of the best bar owner in the world for me. Akkurat was, because he didn't own Akkurat no more, unfortunately, was for me one of the best, and will be the best beer bar in the world. And so early 2000 we are making with Stene the first Soleil de Minuit with cloudberries in Italy. So things moves in Italy in the early 2000s, thanks to Lorenzo da Bove, Cuasca. So that's, I think 15 years ago we can speak about the renewal for lambic.
Around
there
2000.
we feel really the demand is really growing up.
2003, we have the U.S., Italy, and Denmark, right?
Scandinavia.
Scandinavia.
So Sweden, Denmark, Finland.
Finland.
Not yet Norway, but Japan, naturally. That's it, because all the other European countries were still waiting the start of the craft revolution. A bit UK, but not so much.
Yeah. When would you have hit, let's say, 1,000 hectoliters of production a year, roughly?
Quickly. As I told you, the season I started in '89. I don't know if it was '89, '90 or 1991, 12. And in mid 90s, about in between 15 and 18. So I think mid 90, end of 20 years ago. 20 years ago, we reached, or we were not so far from 1,000 hectoliters.
And then in this building, the max out point was about 1,700 hectoliters.
1,800.
Yeah.
About 31 brews.
Now with the new facility online,
2,000. My hope was to double the production, but finally it's impossible. It was impossible first of all because no space for the barrel, and I made a big mistake. I saw all this space for wooden barrels, but if you increase the production, you need space for barrels, but also a lot of space for bottles and for kegs.
yeah.
And so finally, with the new building, I think we will increase the production about 50%. So the total production for Cantillon on both buildings will be about 2,700.
Okay. And you, of course, only use the smaller barrels that are roughly, most of them are 650 hectoliters or so, or 650 liters. Of course, you don't have space really. Smaller even,
Yeah,
600 or
400 and 500.
Okay.
Before, so the pipes were barrels in between 650 and 900, but no one is producing those barrels no more. So here mainly 400, some 500, some 220. But I think that speaking about our barrels, 70% of our barrels are 400 liters volume.
Do you think that you can make better lambic in a smaller barrel than a foeder, let's say? I mean, I know you don't have space for foeders, but if you did, do you think you could make it similar?
Difficult. I will answer you next season, because we bought 3 years ago, 2,000